Welcome to the Money Watch Show. It's Sunday, May 25th. It is Memorial Day weekend. I know a lot of you guys are taking time off, but for this day, for this particular episode, I would love to bring you an interview of me, which was conducted by Phil Briggs. He hosts the CBS News radio show called Eye on Veterans. He himself is a veteran, and we put this together to kind of honor so many of the folks who are in our audience and his audience. We have a lot of overlap in our audiences of people who are either in the military, have been in the military, military families. So I just wanted to bring this interview to you. And again, this is the interviewer is Phil Briggs, CBS News Eye on Veterans. And you know me, I'm Jill Schlesinger. If you've had any questions or you know anyone who is a veteran or family member of a veteran, anyone who needs any sort of financial guidance, they always go to the top of the line when they are veterans or in the service. So check that out. You can go to jillonmoney.com, click the contact us button, and write us a note. And if you want to join us live, just do me a favor. Check the box. Mark will do everything else. Don't forget to sign up for the free weekly newsletter when you do that. Okay, right now, this is Phil Briggs interviewing me on his Eye on Veterans show.
And I want to dive in with just something that affects basically all the audiences of this show. And that's active duty service members considering getting out, those veterans that have been out for a while, and of course the families. With those three audiences in mind, what's the key to a financial strategy that ensures we've got something when we get old?
Well, you know, first of all, like taking a step back, we all do get a little bit crazy about money, regardless of whatever your job is. And here's the big breaking news, Phil. We are human beings. No, it is true. And because of that, we have a lot of emotions surrounding things like money. And I just want to acknowledge that because, you know, sometimes people will come on the pod or the radio show and they'll be like, I'm bad with money. And they're not really bad with money, but often they'll have some like almost mental blocks about money. So I think that when you're considering a financial plan, know that it is a living, breathing document. It's a plan of action that is subject to revision because your life is subject to revision. And we've had a ton of active duty folks who come onto the podcast. I don't know how this happened. A nice Jewish girl from the Upper West Side of New York who all of a sudden has this broad audience, and the veterans seem to like me because I did have a nephew who served, and I kind of like was able to dive into some of the benefits. And I think that what is important to know is that whatever you're creating as your financial journey is subject to change. If you're active duty today, you have one set of circumstances. If you're a veteran, that's another set of circumstances. If you are seeking a job change, if you're saying, I'm coming out of the service, I'm going to go work in the private sector, that's a change. And for you and your family, it might be you walked into your job and you were single and everything was great. You fell in love, you got married, now your life's changing. And then all of a sudden you have babies and your life's changing. All of these things are the factors that are going to influence how you create a financial plan. And so when you say, how do we get to where we want to go? You create a plan of action to get there. And everybody's plan is different. And you don't need to compare yourself to anyone that you work with. You don't have, if you have a parent who's really involved, maybe sometimes it's not the best idea to share everything if that parent has some expectation of the way they want you to live your life. And I guess at the end of the day, if we could all just commit to saying, you know what, I'm going to put some sort of plan of action together for me, for my family, then you are much more likely to attain the goals that you are trying to attain that are listed in that plan.
I love the fact you took the 30,000-foot view first, because I do think that that's the immediate cause of stress for all of us. Oh my gosh, I've fallen behind. I'm not where I need to be. I should have $1 million. I don't have $1 million. Now look at where you are, no matter what phase of life, and say, okay, this is baseline. Yeah. Now we're going to plan. Now we're going to put some tools in the toolbox to use to help us get to where we want to go based on where we are. Having said that, are there specific things, specific products that people looking to hold their wealth and have some maybe left to share with the kids or pay for colleges, which we're going to get into in a minute, but are there specific products that most Americans should just consider having or being involved with?
I'm going to shift away from product and go into, here are 3 things that I think are really important as the building blocks of creating a stable financial life. One is to have 0, as much as possible, debt that is consumer-based debt. So I'm not talking about a mortgage, but if you've got a credit card debt, you ran this up and you got into some trouble, you're going to focus on paying that down. So the big 3, Jill's big 3. Number 1, pay down outstanding consumer debt. And maybe if it's a student loan, that could kind of pop in there as well. But consumer debt, specifically credit card debt, would be a very big pillar that I would hope to achieve. The second thing is to have an emergency reserve fund that could cover expenses of 6 to 12 months of your life. And that's your safety net. That safety net should be held in something that is accessible to you. So we're talking about like a high yield savings account, a short-term CD, but it is not in your drawer full of crypto. It's not an investment account. It is easily accessible money that you're going to earn some interest on, but you're not trying to kill it. It's your safety net. And the third thing that I think is incredibly important for anyone is to contribute to a retirement plan to the best of your ability. And I say the best of your ability because, of course, I want everyone to max out their retirement plans as much as they can. But let's just say you're in a part of a time in your career where you're juggling a lot. You're early in your career. You're like, okay, wait, I'm married. I have 2 kids. I have some old debt that's floating around. I really want to contribute to retirement. I would much prefer that you try to put some money in retirement and also focus on the money that is paying down your debt. You can't do everything at once, but those 3 things, consumer debt free, 6 to 12 months of emergency reserves, and maximizing a retirement account to the best of your ability, those are like the magical solution to getting into like next level financial planning.
I see I have a little homework to do on my own. Those credit cards, you just, they creep up on you.
They do. And also, listen, a lot of times people go into debt for really good reasons. I know that we often make judgments. You'll talk to me. I don't really make a judgment about money. It's maybe why I can talk about it so well. I don't think someone's a deadbeat for doing something. I don't think someone's a bad person because they've accumulated wealth. I'm really sort of agnostic about someone's financial position. If you are feeling like you've lost control, one way to better gain control is to track your money for 90 days. What is coming in and what is going out. And I find this often when I'm talking to folks who are active duty and they have a spouse and they have a certain amount of income, and then maybe the spouse is like in sales and it's like up and down income. So it's very hard to do planning. And so you lose track of like, how are we actually spending money? Are we spending money like it's been a great month, or are we spending money like it's the worst month ever? And I think that when you start to track your money, it gives you a sense of control, and then you can make better decisions, because obviously if you're living paycheck to paycheck, there's not a lot of room to do anything else. But if you're looking at your paycheck to paycheck and you're like, well, I'm living paycheck to paycheck because, we're spending money in a way that is actually not aligned with the way we want to spend our money. We just didn't realize it. It's almost like I liken it to myself. I sit at a bar sometimes. I've been known to have, get to a restaurant early because that's how I roll. I always get there early. Sometimes there's nuts that are sitting in a big jar at the bar. And I kind of mindlessly nurse my bourbon and eat nuts, but I could probably eat like essentially an unlimited amount of nuts. Like it's like literally it's like I'm a horse at the, eating my feed bag. I think that at one point I was with somebody who said, you just ate that whole thing. And I actually didn't. So, there's been a term that's thrown around called mindless eating. And the similar approach would be with spending, that sometimes people are doing mindless spending.
Let's get into something a little bit more complex. This maybe speaks to some of our retired veterans that maybe did the career in the military and are now wanting to be sure that their money's in the right spot, or maybe that person that's just getting out and wanting to develop a future looking plan. And that brings me to the question of the differences. There's 401ks, there's Roth IRAs, there's mutual funds. Some even directly manage their own investments with some of the online tools. Do you have one over the other that you think works best or is simplest or is easiest to use or best returns? What are your thoughts?
It's interesting. Why does a 401k or a thrift savings plan? Because a lot of people from the military move into government jobs, or maybe you're going to go into teaching. You've got a 403b. A lot of the jobs that are associated with retirement plans, those jobs used to have pensions. Now, obviously, if you're in the military, you put your time in, you're going to get a pension. But those extra dollars that you save in retirement, think of it as a supplemental retirement savings. So you have a pension, and then you have another deferred compensation. I usually like the plan. This is the plan you're going to stick to. So the reason why 401ks have been successful in terms of employees putting money away is that it's easy. Your boss takes money out of your paycheck and puts it into a retirement plan. The slight differential here is that if you don't have a job that offers you an employer-based plan, like a 401k, a 403b, a 457, a thrift savings plan, if you don't have that, then you then are looking at an IRA. So the little shift, and this is like a little bit of a mind shift, is that it takes a tiny bit more work to do an IRA. Why? Because then you have to open up an account with a financial institution, either an IRA or a Roth IRA, and I'll get to the difference in 1 second. And then you have to proactively put money into that, as opposed to, it's like the difference between a push-pull, right? When you push money in, it takes some effort. And when your boss pulls money out of your check, it takes a little less effort. And so one is not better than the other. They all have great features and benefits, but when I look at how you can create a sustainable investment plan, often it means automation. Then it's easier. But again, it takes that extra bit of work. Other differences are that you can put more money into an employer-based plan than you can put in an IRA. So for 2025, you can put up to $23,500 into a 401k or a 403b. With an IRA, you can put $7,000 in. If you're over the age of 50, you're allowed to make an extra contribution, a catch-up contribution. And so for an IRA, if you're 50 years or older, you can put the $7,000 in, but an extra $1,000 because you're over 50. It's like the only benefit of being over 50. Trust me.
I feel you. I'm right there. Yeah.
But it's so amazing is that with a retirement plan through your work, right? So again, I'm talking about 401k, 403b, a 457, the thrift savings plan that's offered through the government. You can put $23,500, but if you're over the age of 50 in those plans, you can put an extra $7,500. I mean, it's a massive amount of money. And if you are oddly age 60, 61, 62, or 63, and you've got one of those plans, for this year, 2025, you can actually put in more than $7,500. You can put in what I don't know. We're calling it like the super catch-up contribution. I don't know if that's really the IRS's term. You can put $11,250 away. Not many people have the ability to do that. But you know who might have the ability to put a lot of money away? Someone who's a veteran, who's a career changer, who's like, hey, I got a pension and I'm making money in the private sector. I can max out that retirement account because I know I have that flow of income from my pension. And when I talk to a lot of vets, that's what they're doing. They're saying, I'm working, I'm young enough, I really want to have another career, and they're able to really sock away a ton of money after they get out of the service because they've got these two streams of income.
And I'll give you one more category too. Happened to a friend of mine recently, but when the wife says you need to get rid of the Harley, that right there is your extra super catch-up contribution. Just take it. Don't even realize it. Buy yourself, a 6-pack of cold beer and take the rest to the bank.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. I mean, I will say one last thing about even that planning process. Sometimes I always worry that like there's one person in the couple who's taking lead when you say something like that. And, it used to be, I think you're younger than I am, but like in a different era, it would be like the man's taking care of everything. That's not the case at all. But what I do find is today there's one person who does take primary responsibility for the finances. And it's usually like you're working to your strengths, right? It's an allocation of labor. And all I would like to offer you as something to think about is even if you're the chief financial officer of your family, you want to share your game plan. You want to make sure you're creating that financial plan together and you're sharing all the details with your spouse. And when your spouse says, I don't want to do it, you do that. You say, if something happened to me, you need to know where all the money is and what's going on. You are part of this family. You are a partner in this. When we file our tax returns and it's married filing jointly, remember, a marriage is a love relationship, right? But it's also a financial relationship, in the eyes of Uncle Sam. And you want your partner involved, even if it feels like a pain in the neck. Please do that because it is a much better way to advance your plan going forward.
Yeah. And from personal experience, when my wife and I got into buying our first house, we really had to look at each other's, take a look at what everybody was bringing to the table. And once you got over the fear and the anxiety of oh, well, gosh, she's going to know I'm really brokered and she thought. When I got over that, it was liberating because now we've been together in this. We look at all of our accounts together. We have the same access. We see the same screens. It's nice to just know we're both on the same sheet of music, and it shouldn't cause you stress or anxiety. If you need to keep a couple $100 to yourself, just stick it in your sock drawer like my dad used to do.
It's funny. I get a lot of people who are young and getting married, and they ask me should we have joint accounts? Should we not have joint accounts? I think you do whatever works for you, but I do believe that in any relationship, it is nice to have a little bit of fun money set aside. It doesn't mean, because it's weird if you're both working, especially, you want to be able to spend a certain amount of money that you agree upon that doesn't have to go through the other person. And whatever that level is, it could be okay, you know what? Spend any $100 you want to spend is fine. It's on you. If you want to spend more, go crazy. And, it's like sharing that limitation and also sharing the information. And as you said, I think it comes sometimes of a shame place, right? I am ashamed that I'm in a certain place. But when you come clean and you're in it together, it works better. I know this to my core. It works better.
Do you have any thoughts or any advice on, what programs work? What's really a good yield for, us to ensure that our kids have the funds they need to go to school?
So I think when you're considering college funding, down the line, especially you're young, you're starting out, you know that you have a certain benefit if you stick it out in the military for a certain period of time. But the other question is, are you having conversations with your kids too late in the process? Oftentimes I'll hear from people and they're like, well, Joey I'm going to make it up. Joey got into the state school, but he really wants to go to Wasamatta, the private school. And it's a better name and we're going to do that. I really think that's baloney. I am worried that we are sending kids off to school, putting them in debt, putting families in debt, and I'm not sure it's really worth it. So is a college education worth it? Sure. Is going into debt up to your eyeballs worth it? Not usually. So what my number one way to think about this is when you're talking about college with your kids, you start early in the process. You start when they're freshmen and you say, as a family, this is what we are committed to in terms of helping you out with education. And whatever that is, whatever you and your spouse or you and whoever is whatever you've agreed to, you're going to articulate that to your kid early on. In saving for college, what I love is a Section 529 plan. And for those of you listening and you're using your 529 plan, they're offered through states. You know this. Money goes into the plan. It grows without any taxation. And when you pull the money out for a qualified college expense, there's no tax due. So if you put $1 in and you have $10 accumulated, when you take that money out, unlike any other brokerage account, taxable account, you don't get taxed. So that's really important. In many states, there is a state income tax deduction also associated with the 529 plan. That's why it's my favorite way to save for college. Now, I know what you're going to say. I'm going to read your mind, Phil. You're going to say, wait a minute. What if the kid doesn't use the money for college? right? Can that?
Well, I mean, that's my fear, right? I got 2 kids. I mean, one might not.
So here's the neat thing about, depending on, how much money you're saving. When you have first of all, when you have 529 plans, you can use money among siblings. So if you got one kid who's going to go, let's just say we're going to make up numbers. I got 30 grand in one account for one. I got 30 grand in another account for the other. One's like, I'm not using the money. Great. You can just flip the money over to the one who's going to college. Alternatively, if you have this is from a change in the tax law that was Secure Act 2.0. If you have a 529 account that has been open for at least 15 years and the money is still sitting in there, you can actually move that money on an annual basis into a Roth IRA. You can take a certain amount of money. So we talked about that there's a $7,000. Let's say it's today and the account's been open. Today, you can say your kid's got earned income. You can take $7,000 today and put it in a Roth IRA for that kid. So the Roth versus the traditional is essentially it's just when your money gets taxed. When you have a traditional retirement account, the money that goes in before taxes. So if you've earned $1 and you put 20% into your retirement account, the 20% that comes off, that 20 cents goes into the retirement account, no tax due. You pay the tax later in life when you take the money out. With a Roth account, you put an after-tax dollar in. So you make $1 and you get taxed on that dollar. And whatever you put in after has already been taxed. It goes into this retirement account. It grows without any taxation. Later on, down the line, when you pull that money out after your retirement age of 59 and a half, you don't pay any tax on that. So you can take excess 529 money up to $35,000 per beneficiary, and you can dribble it out over time, whatever the law will be on the limits, and you can create a nice little nest egg for the kid who didn't go to college. And you say, great, I can move $35,000 right over there into a Roth IRA over time. So it's kind of neat. It's a change in the tax law. I think it's a nice change because it kind of keeps the beneficiaries whole. Meaning if you really cared about being even Steven with your kids, you say, I saved 35 for each or 30 for each, and then they each get to keep that money.
Neat strategy. I would have never thought about that. Had no idea about the rolling it into the different kind of interest gaining accounts. And I'll keep that in mind should my youngest or whatnot decide to join the military like dad, then his college fund becomes either a Roth or a fishing boat for me. So we're going to sort that out in the details. Looking forward to that. Hey, last question about getting out of debt and home ownership. Mm-hmm. Do you have eyes on or experience with VA lending and home ownership and, how to use your home as leverage to pay down your debt? Or do you go to one of those debt consolidation companies that advertise to veterans all the time?
No to the debt consolidation companies. Okay. That's number one, because normally just in general, they'll charge a fee and you're your best advocate. When you pay this fee, that company goes and negotiates with the lender, right? So just like Joe Schmo credit card company, it's in collections, it's bad. But if you call, you are going to get a better outcome and you're going to save yourself your fee. Okay. That's number one. So I'm not a huge fan of like paying somebody to do the work that actually I'm going to be my best advocate. The thing about the housing market right now is it's out of whack. And here's why the housing market is crazy. In the last 5 years, home prices are up by 47%. And that's like more than 2 times the rate of inflation. And we know that inflation kind of ballooned up. So that's a huge change. Number 2, the cost of financing a house has increased. We know interest rates are up, right? And number 3, we know that homeowners insurance in so many parts of the country has become a much bigger portion of your home payment. So I just want to frame this as when your parents are like, you need to buy a house. That's how you build wealth. It is a different market than it was not just 15 or 20 or 30 years ago when your parents were buying a house. It's different than 5 years ago. And so I want to take a little bit of the pressure off because do I think that buying a home is great? Yeah, it's great, but not everybody can afford it. The thing is, when you have VA home loans are pretty awesome, okay? And in that, one of the big barriers to buying a home right now is it's hard to come up with a down payment. You know, if I look at let's call the median home price in the United States right now, median, I'm not saying this is where, you know, if you live in like a very high cost of living area, but median is about $400,000. So normally, if I were to go get a home loan to get the very best interest rate, I'd have to put 20% down, right? 80 grand. That is hard to accumulate that right now. Okay. In a VA loan, you don't have to put 20% down. And there are a number of different loan programs that are really very interesting and makes it a lot easier to be able to buy a home. That does not mean that everybody should buy a home with a VA loan, because I think the other thing to remember is that because prices are high, and even if you don't have to put down a big down payment, you still have to carry the mortgage. So what I really want to emphasize here is if you're going to buy a home with a VA loan or with a conventional lender, what I really want folks to do is run the numbers. And if you say to yourself, oh my gosh, even if we buy this house with a VA loan, we literally can do nothing fun. Don't do it. Don't put that pressure on yourself. If you can do it and you can swing it, or, you know, you're lucky that one of you is in the service, you have very consistent income and the other one is working outside and things are great, or your kids are grown, and like all that is great. But you still have to run the numbers and be clear that everything that you decide around this does not have to be forever. It can be like today in 2025, buying a home doesn't work for us. Or, hey, you know what? Today in 2025, this looks great. Even if the interest rates are higher than they were 5 years ago, we can still afford it. Run the numbers. All right. If you've got a financial question, whether you are in the military or not, just give us a holler. Go to JillOnMoney.com, click the contact us button, write us a note, check the box if you want to come on live, and we'll do everything else. Don't forget to check out all the other content that lives on the website. It is there for you. Maybe just bookmark JillOnMoney.com. You can subscribe to us on the Odyssey app. You can also subscribe to our sister program called Jill on Money, which airs Monday through Friday. So Odyssey app will get you there, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Mark Telares here is the co-host and executive producer of this program, as well as the king of all things web. We drop our episodes on weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen. And of course, try to do something nice for someone else today. Change your work, change your wealth, change your life. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next week.